year is the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment to our Constitution, giving all American women the right to vote. To celebrate this historic event, the Citrus League of Women Voters formed a Centennial Committee of civic and community leaders. They planned an extensive celebration for August 22, 2020. Unfortunately, this event, with speeches, reenactments, musicians, dancers, entertainers, and food, had to be canceled due to COVID-19. Even I, portraying May Mann Jennings, has been replaced by a virtual presentation, which we bring to you now. We begin with a welcome from Angela Vick, Citrus County Clerk of Court, elected county official, and has an extensive array of responsibilities to safeguard our records and funds.
Hi, my name is Angela Vick, and I'm the elected clerk and comptroller here in Citrus County. I would like to welcome you and thank you for watching this video. You will gain a better understanding of the women's suffrage movement and also join us in celebrating the bold, courageous, and powerful women who fought for the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution on August the 18th, 1920. The women's suffrage movement in Florida had its origins in Tampa, Jacksonville, and the Orlando area before gaining widespread support in 1910. Florida holds a special place in the women's suffrage history as thousands of Florida women advocated for the right to vote on the streets, in the newspapers, in the state capitol, and throughout the state. Fast forward to today. During the 2019 legislative session, legislation was passed and signed by Governor Ron DeSantis to create the Florida Women's Suffrage Centennial Commemoration Committee, charged with ensuring a statewide observance of the centennial of the women's suffrage in 1920. Citrus County appreciates what it took for women to obtain the right to vote and have shown their support by proclamation of the Board of County Commissioners commemorating the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment and recognizing the contributions of Floridian women. This video only touches on some of them, and I would encourage you to research on your own the history of these amazing pioneers of progress. In these tumultuous times, it is helpful to be reminded of the importance of participation and support in our community, and that some of the most important players are women who continue to pave the way for progress. We are blessed to have women who serve in executive-level positions throughout the county and in county government. I hope you enjoy this video and are inspired to take the opportunity to show what you can do for your community.
We will now hear from Kate
Hey! Suffrage means high taxes. No suffrage for women. Cut it out!
I will not cut it out. We will now hear from Kate Betsko, past president of our local League of Women Voters, during whose term this centennial event was initiated.
100 years of the League of Women Voters, 1920 to 2020. Power of women, a more perfect democracy. That was the League's vision since 1920. Founded by the leaders of the suffragette movement, a nonpartisan activist grassroots organization believes that the voters play a critical role in democracy. Founded February 14th, 1920 in Chicago, 6 months before the 19th Amendment was ratified, designed to help women carry out new responsibilities as voters. After Congress passed the amendment had to be ratified by the states. As anti-suffrage groups still fought to oppose ratification, suffrage leaders mobilized to continue their pressure campaign in the states. Finally, Amendment 19 was ratified by Tennessee and officially made law on August 26, 1920. After World War II, the League carried out a nationwide public support campaign at the request of President Franklin Roosevelt to establish the UN and to ensure U.S. participation. Following the campaign, President Harry Truman invited the League to serve as a consultant to the U.S. delegation at the UN Charter Conference, one of the first organizations officially recognized by the UN as a non-governmental organization. The League of Women Voters still maintains official observer status today. As the League became more active in issue advocacy, the need arose for separate organizational arm for activities like voter registration and information. The League Education Fund was established to encourage the active and informed participation of citizens in government and to increase understanding of major public policy issues in 1957. The League sponsored the first televised presidential debates since 1960, for which we received an Emmy Award for Outstanding Achievement in Broadcast Journalism in 1976. The League sponsored televised general election presidential debates in 1980 and 1984, as well as presidential primary forums in 1980, 1984, and 1988. The debates focused on nonpartisan issues as the main goal of informing voters. As candidates demanded more partisan conditions, however, the League withdrew its sponsorship of the debates in 1988. Local leagues continue to hold debates and forums for local and state offices today, as the Citrus County League presently handles. The League's grassroots campaign for national legislation to reform voter registration resulted in passage of the NVRA, National Voter Registration Act, also known as the Motor Voter Bill. The goal was to increase accessibility to the electoral process. The Motor Voter Bill enabled citizens to register at motor vehicle agencies automatically, as well as by mail, and at agencies that service the public. When the 2000 election exposed the many problems facing the election system, the League began to work on election reform. The League provided a dedicated website for voter information as early as the 1990s. In 2006, the League launched the next generation of online voter education with vote411.org, a one-stop shop for election-related information. Today, Vote 411 provides both general and state-specific nonpartisan resources to the voting public, including a nationwide polling place locator tool and candidate positions on issues and more. In June 2019, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that partisan gerrymandering cannot be solved by the federal courts. In response, the League initiated People-Powered Fair Maps, a coordinated effort across all 50 states and District of Columbia to create fair and transparent, people-powered redistricting processes to eliminate partisan and racial gerrymandering nationwide. This was in 2019. In 2012, the League of Women Voters of Florida, along with Rock the Vote and the Florida Public Interest Research Group Education Fund, filed suit in U.S. federal court after the Florida Senate redrew the maps. The court ruled that they were unsuccessful in their attempt to redraw them fairly. In December 2015, the court accepted the redistricting map submitted by the League of Women Voters of Florida. The League celebrates 100 years. February 14th, 2020 marks 100 years that the League has empowered voters and defended democracy. Over the last century, we fought for election protection, democratic reforms, and equal access to the ballot, all while maintaining our commitment to nonpartisanship and fostering an informed electorate. What will the next 100 years hold? The League of Women Voters has evolved from a mighty political experiment designed to help 20 million newly enfranchised women vote in 1920 to what it is today, a unique, nonpartisan organization that is a recognized force in molding political leaders, shaping public policy, and promoting informed citizen participation at all levels of government. To join us for our next 100 years, join your local league today.
Amy Anderson is a singer-guitarist from Brooksville, Florida. with a passion for the truth of each song she performs. Her diverse palette includes folk, acoustic, classical rock, blues, and jazz. She is an intriguing solo performer with a deep affinity for singing harmony with others. Amy is a founding member of Local Harmony and has played regularly at Woodview Coffee House, Riverside Restaurant, and Sparaccio Witherwell Winery. Take a listen to Amy.
Hi, my name's Amy Anderson. I'm really grateful to be here on this 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. Women have been marching for a long time, not only for their rights, but for others' rights as well. And in our times that we're at right now, there's a song that just came out recently, and it's very apropos for the time and very apropos for women's rights by the Chicks. Hope you enjoy it. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. I'm an army of one. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. I'm an army of one. Brenda's back at heat cause you don't like Mondays. Underpaid teachers, police in the hallways. Get yourself a weapon and take it to the gun range. Cut the crap, you ain't going to the gun range. Standing with Emma and her sons and her daughters, watching our youth have to solve our problems. I'll follow them, so who's coming with me? Half of you love me, half of you hate me. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. I'm an army of one. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. I'm an army of one. Tell me, old men in the white bread lobby, what they can and can't do with their bodies. Temperatures are rising, cities are sinking. Cut the crap, you know your city is sinking. Lies are truth and truth is fiction. Everybody's talking, who's gonna listen? What the hell happened in Helsinki? March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. I'm an army of one. March, march to my own drum. March, march to my own drum. Hey, hey, I'm an army of one. I'm an army of one. March, march to your own drum. March, march to your own drum. Hey, hey, we're an army of one. Yeah, we're an army of one. March, march to your own drum. March, march to your own drum. Hey, hey, we're an army of one. We're an army of one.
For years, women were preoccupied with the injustices against them, and they agitated for equal rights. Finally, on July 19th and 20th, in 1848, they made an astonishing public demand at their first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York. Adopting a document modeled after the Declaration of Independence, they demanded the right to vote. The successful meeting had been convened by local resident Elizabeth Cady Stanton and noted abolitionist Lucretia Mott. The following reenactment describes the success of the convention. The famed abolition leader Frederick Douglass had actively supported the women and helped secure the approval of that declaration demanding women's suffrage. Elizabeth Cady Stanton is portrayed by Vicky Iozia, whom you might recognize from the Wildlife Park. Marilyn Nell Boyson, a former Broadway actress. She is Lucretia Mott. And Edwin Martin, who often performs with the Art Center, appears as Frederick Douglass.
Well, Lucretia, it's over. The Seneca Falls Women's Rights Convention, the first such convention in the United States. Over 300 women and 40 men came to participate and to talk about women's rights. It truly was a grand success.
Well, I regret that our idea for the convention took so long, 8 years since the time we met and talked. Oh, but I was busy with the abolition movement. You were busy with your children.
Yes, 7 children I gave birth to. And you remember the idea for the conference came at Jane Hunt's house. We were venting a lifetime of being told that we were less than men, inferior, having the rights of property, not human rights. And that's when we agreed that a convention was necessary.
Yes, all of us, you, me, Jane Hunt, Mary Ann McClintock, poor little Jane with a 2-week-old baby girl. And she opened her home to us. She opened her home to us, and we poured out our hearts that day. And then we all decided to start work.
Yes, and Lucretia, you were an inspiration on the first speech at the conference. You really learned a lot about speaking from your work in the abolition movement. Mm-hmm. Your opening speech, which explained the goals and the purpose of the conference, was great. We were lucky to have your husband to chair the meeting. Now, of course, a woman could have chaired the meeting, but women aren't allowed to do that.
Well, Elizabeth, you are a great speaker.
Thank you.
I heard you speak. Well, your presentation of the Declaration of Sentiments, where you rewrote the Declaration of Independence, but you showed injustices to women, resolutions for change, and all men and women are created equal.
Yes, and I enjoyed rewriting the Declaration of Independence as much as I enjoyed writing the Women's Bible. I like speaking about women's rights because it comes from the heart. I remember growing up and watching my father, the judge. He would counsel women who had no rights, women whose dowries were being spent, whose husbands were womanizing, drunking, and beating them up. I learned so much about how they suffer. Even my own father said to me he wished that I had been born a boy. What really worried me was the 9th resolution. It is the duty of women of this country to secure to themselves the sacred right to the elective franchise. You didn't agree with it, Lucretia. Neither did your husband, neither did my husband. But I'll tell you, my dear, I really believe that we will do a lot better at getting all of our demands once we have the right to vote.
And that 9th resolution would not have passed without the help of our friend, Mr. Frederick Douglass, who claims so passionately that it is an indispensable basis for winning freedom and equality. Oh, look, he's standing by. Mr. Douglass, won't you please join us?
Well, thank you, my dear ladies.
Hello.
How nice to see you.
Good to
And
see
may I
you.
congratulate you on the success of the convention
Oh.
and on the most notable accomplishment of demanding rights for women and for making the first public declaration of the right of women to vote. I truly believe that women are justly entitled to all the political rights claimed by men, and that politically, women are on equal footing with men. Yes, I know well that suffrage is an indispensable basis for winning freedom and equality. And now I'd like to ask, just what led you ladies to form this convention?
Well, we had met at the World Anti-Slavery Convention in London in 1840. Because of my work with the abolition movement, I was an official of the convention, and Elizabeth was joined with her husband, who was also a delegate. However, as a woman, I was denied seating with the men delegates, the other delegates, men delegates. Elizabeth and I had to meet over in the gallery, which separated the men from the women, and we had to be hidden behind a curtain.
Yes, my husband and I were on our honeymoon for that conference. And Mr. Douglass, what you did will never be forgotten. You were the only man who, as protest and support for us, came over and sat with us behind that curtain.
Yes, and I was in excellent company.
Thank you so much for that. And Lucretia, you and I took some long walks and talked about what we would need to do to form a society of people to get women's rights and suffrage. Yes, it took us 8 long years, but we did it. And now I feel that the right for women's suffrage and women's rights has truly begun.
Yes, the work for suffrage and equality has begun, and you ladies are the ones to lead it. For women are born with equal rights to men. It is inscribed upon all powers and facilities on her soul, and no law, custom, or usage can ever destroy it. I would not feel that I could claim the right of suffrage for myself if women were denied that same right. It'd be a far better world if women were as politically involved as men.
And now, to the work ahead.
To make those rights a reality.
Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott continue their advocacy work following the Seneca Convention, and they worked tirelessly, together and separately, for the right to vote. Yet the greatest agitator for women's suffrage was undeniably Susan B. Anthony. She traveled for years lecturing, being humiliated, even jailed. Unfortunately, she died in 1906 before the suffrage was granted. Here she is portrayed by Dee Collier, professional reenactor and former elementary school teacher, history and drama enthusiast from Ocala.
Women need the right to vote. Women need the right to vote. Are we going to sit around another 100 years and wait for women to have equality with men, have the chance to earn the money for men the same way that men do? Is it 100 years more of struggles? I don't think so, no, because we are all worth it. We're the ones who are going to be working to make that happen. Thank you for asking me to come today. My name is Susan B. Anthony, and I was born the second of 6 children. My family had felt this same way forever. They believed in equality for women. They believed that slavery was terribly wrong and worked very hard to see that both of those issues took the whole country by storm, and we all had a different opinion. My family became very disillusioned with public education because a male teacher refused to teach me long division just because I was a girl. Several men did ask me to be their wives, but at that time, there was the rule that said that women who were married could not speak in public. And there were these burning issues of slavery and of women having rights, and I needed to speak out about such things. So it's probably just as well that I stayed single. I probably would have been very hard to get along with. In 1848, I went to work for a newspaper called The Lily. It was the first woman-owned newspaper in the country. While working there, I met Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and we have become lifelong friends. We wrote together, and we had so many of the same opinions together. In 1849, I met her cousin, Elizabeth Miller. She was out gardening, dressed very similarly to what I am today. Came in totally frustrated, took a pair of scissors, cut off her dress and her crinoline below the knees. Now, of course, she had on full trousers underneath for modesty. But she was then unencumbered and could do whatever she wanted to very comfortably. She began to wear this outfit as she worked around and also went into town. I decided I would wear clothing like that too. The editor of The Lily, named Amelia Bloomer, was the one who promoted this outfit in her newsletter, which is why the outfit became called the Bloomers. Well, people made fun of me, they jeered, so I decided I'd go back to black and white and gray and browns, but I always had one spot of color, my red shawl. It became something of a trademark with me, and wherever I went, speaking to groups and speaking to individuals or even on a street corner, I always had my red shawl, and people knew what I was going to be talking about. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and I wrote together, and we worked together, and we spoke together as much as possible. And we would speak to groups wherever they were, and we decided that it would be very smart to strategize how to do that the best way. For example, farmers, we lived in upstate New York, obviously in the winter they were not out in their fields. So what we did was decide to go on speaking engagements starting in the dead of winter. People would come into our lecture halls and they would hear us. We spoke very clearly, very plainly, very concisely, so people would understand the fact that men and women have the same emotions. I mean, they hate, they love, they need sleep, they need to eat. They go to picnics together. They go to balls and opera. Why would it hurt for men and women to stand at the same chalkboard? Do you know that I even was a proponent of mixed racial education? And I said that women should have the same ability to go to college as men did. Would you believe for that I was called a monster of social deformity? I was called many vile names. And sometimes at the speaking engagements, angry mobs would be outside, not even letting people come in, but they did by the droves because they were hungry for the truth. In one instance, I had someone sneak into the basement in the middle of winter, turn off the heat. I just took my red shawl and wrapped it further around me. Another time at an evening lecture, someone came in and turned out all the gas lanterns. I spoke in the dark. It didn't matter. I had to get the word out because slavery was terribly wrong. Women needed the same rights as men, and those ideas were beginning to permeate the country. We were determined that everyone was going to hear about it, whether we had to travel to other states or whether we spoke locally. They had to hear about that. In 1862, we were ecstatic that President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation until we read it. It only freed the slaves in the South. Oh, no. Something had to be done much more permanent than that. Why, there needed to be an amendment to the U.S. Constitution outlining slavery. It was terribly wrong on every level. So we got a petition together and garnered 1 million signatures, the most that had ever been on any petition ever. And finally, the 13th Amendment was ratified, stating that there would be no slavery at all in any state, current or any future state. We were very proud of that. But what about our women's rights issues? And we just worked even harder for that. Why, we worked with former slaves, we worked with anyone who would work with us, and to be able to get this idea across to people. When the 14th Amendment came out, it stated very plainly that everyone who was a U.S. citizen could vote. We're U.S. citizens. That 1872 election was right around the corner. That was the election between Horace Greeley and Ulysses S. Grant. And at that election, we were determined we were going to go ahead and vote. We had the 14th Amendment behind us. So my sisters, Mary, Hannah, Guelma, and I, and 12 other women went down to the registrar's office in Rochester, New York, which was in the barber shop. So we went down there and we showed him the 14th Amendment. The registrar read it and he said, yes, ma'am, okay, you can go ahead and register to vote. A few days later, we went and voted. Oh, that felt so good. And for a while, nothing happened. 3 weeks later, on Thanksgiving Day of 1872, the U.S. Marshal appeared at my door, and he said, I'm sorry, Miss Anthony, I'm here to arrest you. I said, on what law have I broken? He said, sorry, ma'am, but you voted. I'd been expecting that. I was taken to jail, my 3 sisters, and the other 12 women. Bail was set for all of us at $500. I wasn't about to pay mine because I wanted my case taken to the U.S. Supreme Court. They paid theirs, they got out of jail, then my bail was reset for $1,000. I still wasn't about to pay that, but my lawyer paid it. So they set my trial for the following June. In the meantime, I went all over speaking, is it a crime for a citizen of the United States to vote? People started listening. They started coming in droves. Newspapers started printing more positive things about us. At my trial that June, the judge looked at me and he said, ma'am, you are not to speak in your own defense because women are incompetent to do so. He turned to the jury, comprised of all men, and he said, you are to find her guilty before the trial. Well, of course, they did find me guilty, and the judge set a fine of $100. I never paid it, nor will I. Things are getting easier. People's ideas are changing. When I was in my 70s, I felt like, well, I needed to slow down just a little bit, but nothing was going to get in my way of getting this word out. And then when I turned 80, I felt like it was time for me to step down as the president of the National American Women's Suffrage Association. And I turned those duties over to Carrie Catt in her very capable hands. So proud of Carrie. That evening, as I gave my speech of resignation and also talked with these women about how far we had come, how wonderful they were doing and working. It was now 1900. New ideas, fresh ideas. The enlightenment of the 20th century was taking place. We had come so far. I titled my speech, Failure is Impossible. And I truly believe that each one of us, if we go out and do our part, talking with other people, telling them what our hearts are saying about the fact that women need to vote, I truly believe that one day we will look back on this and we too will say, failure is impossible. Thank you very much.
Thousands of women were involved in the fight for suffrage. Today we hear from 3 of them. Reporter Margot Wilson visits a museum where their statues in repose. They include the militant Alice Paul, organizer of parades and demonstrations, who was jailed and force-fed. She is played by Mary Ann Wetherington. The importance of Black suffragists always has been undervalued. Bonita Martin tells the story of Mary Church Terrell. Carrie Chapman Catt brought the competing factions of the movement together and formed the winning plan, culminating the approval of the 19th Amendment. She is played by Jean Macaulay.
It's the 100th anniversary of the women's suffrage movement. I'm visiting this museum today to see some statues of famous suffragettes. I'm a reporter. Maybe I can get a good story. Let's see who this is. Oh my goodness, you're alive!
Only for a moment.
Who might you be?
My name is Alice Paul, and I am best known as the militant suffragette.
Alice, I'm so pleased to know you. Thank you for talking to me. Can you tell me how you first became interested in the women's suffrage movement?
Well, growing up, my Quaker mother would take me to women's suffrage meetings, and both my parents strongly encouraged my education. I have a degree in biology, as well as a master's and a PhD in sociology.
Wow, so what did you do after college?
Well, in 1906, I went to England for 3 years to study social work, and it was there that I learned militant protest tactics, such as picketing and hunger strikes, while advocating for women's voting rights. I was arrested several times, went on a hunger strike, and was jailed for my protesting.
How dreadful. What did you do when you came back to America?
Well, I joined the National American Women's Suffrage Association, chairing the Congressional Committee and leading the Washington, D.C. chapter. I left that group to form a more militant one known as the National Women's Party. Our goal was to implement change on a national level through a constitutional amendment.
Did you accomplish that?
It was quite difficult. On March 3rd, 1913, the day before President Woodrow Wilson was inaugurated, I led a parade of 8,000 women with banners and floats down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Wow.
Yes, from the Capitol all the way to the White House. We were reviled, but we were also cheered on by 500,000 citizens lining the parade route.
Oh.
Our representatives met with President Wilson, who at that time did not approve of a constitutional amendment.
So what did you do next?
Well, we organized more demonstrations, and I founded the Congressional Union for Women. We lobbied Congress for 18 months, and I was jailed for protesting. Then in 1917, a group of us known as the Silent Sentinels picketed outside of the White House gates, and I was again arrested and jailed for protesting. In desperation, we organized a hunger strike, and some of us were actually force-fed while we were in jail. The commotion this caused convinced President Wilson to finally support the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, giving the right for women to vote.
What a struggle. Thank you, Alice, for all you have done to support women's suffrage and women's rights. Today, women are voting in droves. They're a growing force in Congress, and they're even running for president. It is because of efforts like women like Alice Paul that we owe this success. And now I'd like to speak with this lady. Tell me who you are, please.
My name is Mary Church Terrell, and I am a Black suffragette. I'm here to share how Black women contributed to the women's suffrage movement. Often overlooked in history, Black women engaged in significant reform efforts and political activism, leading to following the ratification of the 19th Amendment. We confronted racial discrimination in our efforts to support the amendment and to win the vote. We organized suffrage clubs and worked diligently for the cause. Our greatest effort was the creation of the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs.
Mary, would you tell me how that organization contributed to your activism?
I became the first president of the association. We worked on women's and civil rights issues. Our motto was, lifting as we climb. We fought for women's rights as well as uplifting and improving the status of African Americans. We were determined to lift Black communities educationally, socially, and politically. I also lectured about women's suffrage and racial equality and how they went hand in hand. Racial justice was unfortunately an issue mainstream women's suffrage organizations do not include in their agenda.
Thank you, and it still can be a problem today. Can you tell me, I heard that you were one of the first African American women to graduate from college.
I was.
Wow.
My parents, although ex-slaves, became financially successful, and it afforded me educational opportunities. I graduated from Oberlin College.
Tell me, what made you devote a lifetime to women's suffrage and racial equality?
In 1892, my lifelong friend, Tom Moss, was lynched by whites.
Oh.
Jealous of the success of his grocery store. This event made me understand I could not sit on the sidelines while these injustices prevailed.
Tell me, Mary, were you ever a member of the National American Women's Suffrage Association?
Yes. I attended some of the meetings and had the opportunity to meet and work with Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton and other renowned suffragist leaders.
So in your opinion, has the 19th Amendment met its goals?
It was a victory for some. The extension of voting rights to women certainly honors our democracy and has forever changed the face of the electorate. Unfortunately, many Black women living in the segregated South were denied this essential right of democracy, and it was a bittersweet accomplishment.
Mary, I salute you for making our world a better place and always striving for justice. You worked under the dual prejudices of gender and race. Thank you. And now to our third statue. Who might you be?
I am Carrie Chapman Catt, called the Uniter Suffragette. My father refused to pay for me to go to college, so I had to work to attend Iowa State University. I was the only woman to graduate in my class, receiving a Bachelor's of Science degree. I became a teacher, a high school principal, and a superintendent of schools. My mother helped me understand how a woman's life was limited, so I became active in the Iowa's Women's Suffrage Association.
Please continue, Carrie.
Well, I was speaker at the 1890 National American Women's Suffrage Convention, and in 1892, I was asked by Susan B. Anthony to address Congress on the proposed women's suffrage amendment. I also succeeded Miss Anthony as president of that organization.
That's impressive. So, did you stop there?
Oh no, I also founded the International Women's Suffrage Alliance and the Women's Peace Party. And I consolidated the suffrage groups in New York City into the Women's Suffrage Party. This led to a suffrage victory in New York State in 1917.
So I understand, Carrie, that you were responsible for coordinating the national suffrage campaign with the drive for a national constitutional amendment.
Yes, my winning plan was to have senators and representatives from different states support the 19th Amendment to attain suffrage at both the state and federal levels. I was able to get the support of many states, such as I did in New York. This ultimately resulted in the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution on August 26, 1920.
And that's why we're here today celebrating the centennial of the women's suffrage movement, 100 years since ratification.
Yes, a landmark to be sure. And in 1920, I went on to found the League of Women Voters to encourage women to use the vote we struggled for 72 years to obtain. I continued to serve as honorary president of the League until my death in 1947.
You are an amazing woman, Carrie. Thank you for your leadership. I think my newspaper is going to love this story. And now let us thank all the participants in the women's suffrage movement who made it possible for women to vote for our leaders today.
Here to enliven us with her thoughts on the current state of the suffrage movement is local educator and inspirational speaker, the Reverend Tammy Langley. Let's give Tammy a warm welcome.
Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. Harriet Tubman. Greetings to all of you who are assembled to listen and experience the historical accounts of women's suffrage in the United States of America and to celebrate the many contributions and accomplishments of an array of phenomenal women from all walks of life, from all ethnicities, from all cultures, and from all races. I would be remiss if I didn't start with Thanksgiving. So first of all, I thank God for his grace and his strength through all of it. Now it is important to recognize and celebrate individuals when their service has been noteworthy and life-changing. So with that, I say thank you. Thank you to Susan B. Anthony, Krista Daniels Adar, Antoinette Brown Blackwell, Anna Cooper, Mary Ann Shad Carey, Dorothy Day. Thank you to Florence Ellenwood Allen, Mary McLeod Bethune, Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, and Julia Ward Howe. Thank you to Mabel Ping Howe Lee, Adelina Otera, Rose Schreiderman, Anna Howard Shaw, and Harriet Tubman. There are so many more we can take time to thank for their tireless efforts to defeat the misogynistic political policies and laws that kept the American woman from expressing herself through the right to vote. Women who fought against racial injustices and inequalities. Women who fought for what was right, simply for what was right. While there are many great women who have and still contribute to the empowerment of women all over the world, I'd like to take a moment to herald around one of them, Vera Mae Piggy, a name I'm sure most people have never heard of, a name that is tossed into the collections of individuals who were never properly recognized for their service, but a name nonetheless that is to be celebrated. An undercurrent, generally perceived as a negative movement, set out to disrupt the order of things. While this is true, we must understand that in some instances, an undercurrent is necessary to effectively revolutionize eras of erroneous behaviors. You see, there is power in the undercurrent, power in the influence of that which is not expressed openly, powerful movements that are unannounced, working in the background behind the curtains. Vera May Piggy was just that, an undercurrent. She was an undercurrent that moved the dial on restoring the voting rights of Black women and men in the South. She ran a beauty salon, and in the front of the salon, she did hair, while in the back of the salon, she was able to eliminate the barrier of illiteracy in order for over 100 Black men and women to register to vote. An undercurrent, a strong force that opposed the prevailing forces within the atmosphere. I'm going to say that again. An undercurrent, a strong force that opposed the prevailing forces within the atmosphere. Her story is one of many that can be told about the resilience, the tenacity, and the valor of our American women. Women who saw opposition as opportunity, opportunity to do something great. Women who believed that their worth was beyond that which had been previously defined and, might I add, misunderstood. Women who knew that their glory, their greatness, could be used alongside the bravery of men to make a difference in the world. From the writing of the 15th Amendment in 1870 that stated all men had the right to vote, regardless of race, color, or previous condition of servitude, to the writing of the 19th Amendment in 1920, 50 years passed. 50 years of fighting for voting equality. 50 years of innovative acts of bravery that helped to shape our world as we know it. Here, we are marking 100 years of the 19th Amendment. 100 years, though spoken easily, was not always easily realized. We celebrate what was while embracing what we must do now. So I want to encourage you today to not think small of yourself. Don't think small of the gifts, the talents, and the glory that is within you. You are meant for today. Here are the words of Dorothy Day, a social activist. She says, "My message to all of us today, as we look back on what was, we must take from it the strength and motivation to create what is to be. The work is not over. You may feel the work that you do or the contributions you can give are small. People say, what is the sense of our small effort? They cannot see that we must lay one brick at a time. Take one step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has a right to sit down and feel hopeless. There is too much work to do. So now is the time for us to take advantage of what so many fought for, so many took ridicule for, and so many even died for. Now is the time for us to use the power of the undercurrent to change our world. Be the undercurrent. Make boss moves while no one is looking. Stand for what is righteous, even when those close by you may oppose it. Stand and be the change you want to see. You can do it. We can do it together. We are beauty. We are strength. We are power. It begins with each one of us exercising our right to vote, our right to stand for what is right, influenced only by what we know is right for all mankind. We will preserve what is necessary to be preserved, and we will change what must be changed. I leave you now with an excerpt from Maya Angelou's Phenomenal Woman. Now you understand just why my head's not bowed. I don't shout or jump about or have to talk real loud. When you see me passing, it ought to make you proud. I say, it's the click of my heels, the bend of my hair, the palm of my hand, the need for my care. 'Cause I'm a woman, phenomenal woman, that's me. So I charge you today, in the spirit of the undercurrent, dare to be different, Dare to make a difference. Dare to do what is right, not just for you, not just for now, but for the future of our world. Some young girl, some young boy that has not even been born yet is depending on us to be phenomenal. Just as we are able to stand on the sacrifices of our forefathers and our mothers that came before us, they will one day be able to stand and do the same. Go, do, and be phenomenal.
Something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there telling me I got to beware. Think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. This battle line's being drawn. Nobody's right, everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Think it's time to stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What's going down? What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs, carrying signs, mostly saying hooray for our side. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What's going down? Paranoia strikes deep into your life, it will creep. Starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the man come to take you away. Think it's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop, children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
We enjoyed bringing you this portion of our planned celebration, honoring the incredible women who fought for our right to vote. We could not let their work become undone, and we encourage everyone today to use this right and vote in the upcoming elections. By the way, it's been another 100 years since the Equal Rights Amendment was proposed, and it's still not finalized. We close this program with a reading of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. Let's read it with Sandy Counts, Chair of the School Board. Welcome, Sandy.
The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. The 19th Amendment.
And in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. But you gotta keep on keeping on. Get your ticket, climb on board. This train is heading for a better world. Moving, moving on. Moving, moving on. Nothing can stop us now. Nothing can slow us down. Nothing can hold us back, 'cause we're moving, moving on. Moving on. We've been beauty, we've been scorned, we've been talked about as sure as you're born.